A Ghostly Haunting in Grand Haven, chapters 32 and 33. When I awoke the next morning, I was surprised to find that it was already after 9 o'clock. I never slept in that late, not even on the weekends. Then I suddenly remembered everything that had happened the day before, right up to the point where Dad had been able to get the van unstuck from the driveway. I remembered the snow in the headlights as he drove the van cautiously to the main road, and then I didn't remember anything after that. I must have fallen asleep in the van. I rolled out of bed, found my slippers, and walked to the window. I pulled back the drapes. The snow had stopped, and the sky was gray. There was probably 15 or 16 inches of new snow on the ground dumped by the storm. The winter witch had moved on, spilling her cauldron of white potion all over Grand Haven. But the next thing I noticed was the dark blue Michigan State Police Suburban parked in our driveway. "Oh man," I whispered, "they're coming for us. We're going to get arrested for burning down the house. We're going to be taken to jail." I began to tremble. I didn't want to get arrested. I didn't want to go to jail. Sure, it had been Angela who had lit the flare. She had thrown it at that creature or ghost or whatever it was. She was the one who'd actually started the fire that burned down the house. But she might have saved our lives, too. There's no telling what that thing might have done. If Angela hadn't done what she did, it had been incredibly brave. Destructive, yes, but necessary. Necessary and courageous. And the more I thought about it, I realized that I probably wouldn't be taken to jail. Kids my age don't go to jail. Angela and I probably wouldn't get arrested. However, Dad might. Dad might get arrested and he might go to jail. You can't burn down a house and think you're not going to get into trouble. I spun, raced across my room to my bedroom door, threw it open, and sprinted down the hall. My brother Alex was in the kitchen eating a bowl of cereal and reading a comic book at the table. He glanced up at me for a second and then went back to reading. In the living room, Mom and Dad were just saying goodbye to two state troopers, a man and a woman in dark blue uniforms. Mom was closing the door as I stopped, already out of breath and gasping from the frantic run from my room. Dad must have seen the panic look on my face. He raised his hands, displayed his palms, and began to explain. "Everything's okay," he said. "I told the police everything that happened from the time we arrived at the house until the time we left." "And they're not going to arrest us for burning down the house?" Dad and Mom looked at each other. "No," Dad said, shaking his head. "They aren't going to arrest me, or you, or Angela." "But we lit the house on fire," I said. "And did you tell them about the ghosts? About the crazy things that happened?" Dad nodded. "I told them everything," he repeated. "I told them the truth." He looked at Mom. Deep concern was written upon both of their faces. "Then, what's wrong?" I asked. Dad sighed. "Well, there's one thing they're having a hard time believing," he said. "Several things, actually. In fact, I'm having a hard time believing it, too." "Is it the ghosts?" I asked. "No," Dad said, shaking his head. "It's the house. You see, when we got home last night, you'd fallen asleep in the van. I carried you to your bedroom, and then your mother called Angela's parents. I drove her to her house and then came home. I called the police and told them what happened. They came back an hour later saying that when the fire department had been to the home, they'd found the structure intact." I was confused. "What do you mean intact?" I replied. "What does that mean?" "It means it was fine," Dad said. "It hadn't burned down. In fact, there was no evidence of us even having been there." Slowly, my jaw slackened and fell. My mouth hung open in dumbfounded amazement. But we saw it," I stammered. "All three of us did. You saw it too." Dad shook his head. I know, he said. "It doesn't make any sense. The police wanted to talk more about it, so they came here to speak to me in person." I stood there, my jaw hanging open, not knowing what else to say. My thoughts were spinning, and there were so many of them that my brain couldn't seem to latch on to any single one. Questions came at me and fled just as fast. "Are you all right?" Mom asked, placing a hand on my shoulder. Her words brought me out of my daze, and I shifted my gaze to her. "Yeah," I replied with a slow nod. "I just can't believe it. I can't believe it didn't happen." "Oh, it happened all right," Dad said. "But what is it that exactly happened? I don't know. We may never know." Later that morning, I called Angela to tell her about the police and what had happened. "I know," she said. "They just left." "They were there?" I exclaimed. "Yup," she said. "They asked me everything about what happened last night." "What did you tell them?" "I told them the truth," Angela replied. "I told them about the flare and everything. They told me the house didn't burn down." It's crazy. Quinn, what really happened yesterday? I mean, did all of it happen? Or did we just dream it? It was no dream, I said, shaking my head. It really happened. School, of course, had been canceled for the day. That afternoon, Angela and I dragged our sleds to a nearby park where there was a big hill so that we could take advantage of the newly fallen snow. There were about 20 other kids there, sledding down the hill, hiking back up, and sledding down again. When we got tired, we sat down next to a big tree. Thanks to our snowsuits, hats, gloves, and boots, we were as warm and as comfortable as we could be. Except for one thing, the memory of yesterday. That made me really uncomfortable. I just don't understand, I said to Angela. There are so many things that we don't know. I started making a list of unanswered questions in my head, and I've just lost track. There are just too many questions. I don't suppose they'll ever be answered, Angela said. I'm never going back to that house again. My dad said he called the owner of the house this morning, I said. He wanted to know more about the original owner of the house a long time ago. But Dad said the number was disconnected and he can't find anything more about him. It's like the owners don't even exist. But that's impossible, Angela said. I can't believe that we... Angela stopped speaking. Something behind me had caught her attention and she looked over my shoulder. Her eyes flew open wide and she pointed. Look out, she screamed. Chapter 33. Alarmed by Angela's warning, I turned my head. A large sled carrying a kid in a black snowsuit was barreling directly at us. I rolled to one side and Angela rolled to the other. However, the kid on the sled also rolled, tumbling off his sled and into the snow. The plastic sled went flying by us harmlessly, hitting the tree with a loud bonk and coming to rest upside down in the snow. In the tumble, the kid's hat went flying and a gallon of black hair spilled out. That's when I realized it wasn't a him, it was a her. Powdery snow frosted her black hair and face. Whew, sorry about that, the girl said, wiping the snow away from her face. She was grinning. I got going too fast and lost control. Yeah, I guess, Angela snapped. She was not too happy about nearly being run over. We're fine, I said. The girl's name was Brittany, and she was from Sault Ste. Marie in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. She was visiting some relatives and was supposed to have gone home the day before, but the snowstorm had caused her family to stay another couple of days, at least until the roads were cleared and travel was safer. Yesterday, she said, our car slid off the road and we nearly hit some trees. We were really lucky that no one was hurt. I looked at Angela and she looked back at me. I think we were luckier than you, I said. Yeah, Angela replied. What happened to us yesterday was pretty scary. We told Brittany all about the haunted house, how we'd spent the day there, and all the things that had happened. She listened with complete fascination, not saying a word. So, I said, that's what really happened yesterday. Do you believe it? Brittany shrugged. Sounds scary, she said, but I've heard of crazier things happening. In fact, I had something happen to me last year that was just as scary, maybe worse. Really? Angela said. Brittany nodded. That's right, she said. Come on, grab your sleds and I'll tell you all about it while we hike back up to the top of the hill. And so, while the three of us pulled our sleds through the deep snow, while other kids hollered and shrieked as they whizzed down the hill on their sleds, Brittany told us all about the sea monsters of Sault Ste. Marie.